Hello, hello. Good afternoon, or good morning, or maybe good evening, wherever you are, depending on where you are in the world. But regardless of your location, I want to welcome you to the Employee to CEO podcast. I am your host, Monique Nicole, and I'm super excited you're here today, especially if you have already looked at, watched, listened to episode number 4, part 1, which I'm going to be talking about part 2 today on how to identify and attract your ideal client. So if you've listened to part 1, great. This is a great segue. I'm glad you're back. If you have not listened to or watched part 1 of episode number 4 on this topic, I want to highly encourage you to go back and listen, take a few moments to listen to the podcast, to watch it. I believe it's around 30, 40 minutes. I try to keep these podcasts. My goal is to really keep these short, under 30 minutes, so you could listen to this while you're walking, or you can listen to this, while you're working out in the morning, or even taking your shower. Like, I'm that person. Like, I find time to do the things and digest the things that are important to me. And so, my goal is to try to keep these very condensed, straight to the point, so that you can get the information, get the nuggets that you need to help you to be successful. So let's dive right in without any further ado, because I do want to really break down this second half of this topic on how to identify and attract your ideal client. And I think this is it's a very important topic. And it's honestly the second thing that I coach and I teach in uh, my coaching program, the Employee to CEO program, and we have 2 courses under that under the program. But I teach on, you know, really how to not just find your ideal client or identify them, but also how to find them. Like, how do you get your brand and your business in front of them? Because I know firsthand, like, how difficult it is to build a business, right? Like, when I tell you guys, I have not just built a business, I've built several businesses. And this is not to toot my own horn, but I want to kind of really paint this picture to you, for you, of why this topic is important. Because not only have I built several businesses, but I've built them several times over, right? Life has happened to me just like everyone else, and I've had to start over many times. Or if I didn't have to start over, I had to pivot and I had to shift some things. And that takes a tremendous amount of effort, right? A tremendous amount of effort. And I think that's one of the things that people don't talk about. Like, we don't talk about, the sweat equity that has to go into building and growing a business. Um, and I think it's so necessary to talk about, because it's like, we want to talk about the glitz and the glam of, having freedom and being able to choose and, make your own schedule. And yes, all of those things come with it, right? Comes with the package. But it doesn't mean that there aren't things that you have to do in order to get that. And so I want to really kind of provide some context around that, especially around this topic, because it is very important to know that getting this part right dictates everything in your business. It is really the thing that's either going to send you down a path of success and, you know, getting clients and building your revenue that's coming into the business, building your brand, right? And this also going to fuel you to keep going, because when you launch a business and you open the doors and people come running in, right? This is a metaphor, but people are running into your storefront or your business. It's inspiring, right? It inspires and fuels you to want to keep going. But what happens when you launch the business and it's crickets? Right? You're not very motivated to keep going. And it makes you start to question yourself, or question, oh, is this the right thing? Did I do the right thing? Should I have kept my job? right? I experience all of those feelings. And so I know exactly where you are if you're experiencing that right now. And I want to help you to get this right, because if you get it right the first time, I promise your journey is going to be so much smoother. It's going to be so much more pleasurable for you. And it's going to really help give you that momentum that you really need to have longevity in this journey in this life of entrepreneurship. So I want us to get this right. So again, if you haven't watched part one, go back and watch part one and then come back and watch this episode, which is part two, on how to identify and attract your ideal client. Okay, so that's what we're talking about today. But today we are going to be talking about the second half, which is how to attract your ideal client. So part one was how to identify them, how to know who they are, right? Who are they? What is their makeup? What are some of the psychographics, the demographics? What are their interests, right? What are their pain points? What is it that they need? And how can you provide a solution to that need, right? We talked all about that last week. But today we're going to talk about once you know that, how do you identify them, right? How do you attract them? Okay. So how do you bring them in and let them know, hey, I'm here. I'm here to serve you. I've got what you need. And how do you, connect with them so that they will want to purchase or invest in your products and services? So I want to give you five strategies and how to do this. And these are kind of the five key areas that I focused on when I was building my business and really trying to get clarity on who am I supposed to serve, right? And let me tell you something. This is work that, big companies, big corporations do. This is not something that just, is an exercise if you're a small business owner looking to grow your business. Like, big companies spend millions of dollars in investment, in research, in data, right, to figure this out. I can remember, I'll tell you a quick little story and then we're going to dive into these five areas. But this just popped in my head. It's so interesting. So I remember working in advertising. As you guys know, that's my background. I come from the advertising world. I first started out working for Yahoo, which small but very big company that you may have heard of, working in digital advertising. And at that time, I was working specifically in what they call display advertising, which is where I would work with. I was account manager, so I would work with big advertisers, like your Coca-Colas, your Unilevers, your Pizza Hut, your, any consumer brand that you can think of. I probably work with them. And my job was to take their ad spend dollars and figure out how to, create a campaign that was going to reach their target audience. Okay. So I'll tell you, one of the things that we would do is before we even started working with a client, we would have like this strategy session to really understand who their ideal client was. Like, who are we reaching? Who are we trying to target? What are they interested in? And how do we, connect with them, right? In the digital landscape. And so I'll give you this quick example. I remember one of my clients was Pizza Hut at the time, and we were trying to help them increase sales and particularly the lunchtime hour, right? So if you think about like pizza, most people buy pizza or order pizza like in the evening times, right? Or, right before, for dinner, or if there's a big game, maybe the Super Bowl is coming, right? That's why you always see, typically at least one pizza brand advertising during the halftime, right? Because they know that that's a way that people come together and they commune, right? So they order pizza. But there was kind of like this gap in their business where they were looking to increase sales during the off times, right? So when people really aren't normally ordering pizza, which was usually during, lunchtime. Like, and I worked in the city, so in New York City. And so, pizza usually wasn't the thing that's on people's mind to order, right? Usually you go out, and I would go out and get a salad or get a sandwich or something like that, something quick and easy to grab because you had to get back to work. But so their goal was to do this. And so one of the things that we did was really understood the psychology and did some research on their consumer and like, you know, what would work for them? Why would they want to buy pizza during their lunch break? And how do we make it, attractive to them? And so one of the things that we did was we realized that they weren't advertising typically during the day. They were advertising at night, right? When people are at home watching TV, right? And they're like, "Oh, okay, let's order some pizza." Like that was their marketing strategy for a very long time. And so, long story short, I came up with myself and my team came up with this strategy to do some what we used to call day part advertising. So we would actually use their ad spend to just literally run ads during a very specific time of the day, which was the lunchtime block. And they actually produced a specific product for this. It was more of like the personal pan pizza, and there was some incentives like you can come in and carry out, and so carry out kind of became very popular around this time, and so they were kind of leveraging that. And so I share that story to say that the only way we could have come to that conclusion of this is a really good strategy. And by the way, the campaign did very well. um, I'm not going to get too technical, but their CPA was amazing, and they were really happy, and they ended up, spending several $1 million with us the next quarter. But I say that to say, like, the only way we would have came to that, strategy and that solution was to really understand the customer, right? We had to get into the mind of what that customer wanted and how to make it appealing and satisfactory for the client to want to go out and grab a pizza during their lunch break because that wasn't really the norm, right? And so the campaign was very successful, but it wouldn't have been that successful if we hadn't done that pre work. So this is why this is so important, because if you're going to put money into building your business, put time and effort and sweat and resources, right? You got to get this part right. Okay, so I'm off my soapbox, but I wanted to just really stress that and let you know that like big companies, they do this. Okay. This is very important as well. They understand the importance of getting this right. And so should you. Right. So the first thing, if you're taking notes, is tailoring your message. So having a tailored message for your client for your ideal client and here's the key, that speaks directly to their pain points, their desires, and their values. Okay. So I want to kind of break this down. So their pain points are the things that really bothers them, like the things that they need help with. It could be the thing that, they just feel like they don't have a solution for, right? The thing that just really pains them. It could be, and obviously this depends on what the product or services is that you're going to be offering, but you have to understand what is it that they need, right? And how does your product or service provide a solution for that pain point or that need? Okay. The second thing is, what are their desires? Right. So I kind of gave you this example about Pizza Hut. And one of the things that we uncovered, I mentioned, is like the desire to be able to go out, grab lunch really quick and get back to the office. Right. So we had to make sure that whatever the product was or the solution that we offered them, which in this case was like, free carry out and, maybe a discount or something. There was some campaigns that we ran, but it was more focused around the personal pan pizza or some of their other lunch, smaller portion options. Okay. So we had to meet the desire. They don't desire to have a large pizza unless they're taking something back to the office. But, and we had some things for that too. But the average person was, they just need a personal pan pizza. Okay. So we had to speak to that. And then their values, right? What does your ideal client value? What is at their core important to them? Okay, so these are all things you have to keep in mind when you're crafting your messaging. Now, your messaging is going to be, obviously your copy, right? Which you have on your website, the copy that you have on your social media. So whatever you're posting about, even to maybe if you have a blog post, these are all things that you want to consider when you're thinking about your messaging. Okay. And it all has to work together. So, meaning you can't have, you can't be saying one thing on social media, on your social media posts, and then another thing in your email newsletter, right? It has to really all work together and it has to be a consistent message. Because here's something that I've learned is that people need repetition. And a lot of times I feel like we think like, oh, if we set it in, my social media post, it's going to sound like I'm repeating myself if I send them an email about the same topic. No, there is power in repetition and consistency. You know, this is something that big companies, again, have mastered. They will plaster. If you've ever, I mean, let me just finish this thought. So they will literally plaster the same message across different media channels. So have you ever, and I'm going to give you an example of what this looks like. And you probably haven't even ever thought about this, but I'm going to bring this to light for you. Have you ever been driving home, let's just say from work, and you have the listening to the radio and you hear an ad for McDonald's? Okay. Right? And it's talking about how delicious their flaky, fish sandwiches with the tartar sauce and the melted cheese and on the perfect toasted buttery bun, right? Like I literally just heard this ad the other day. That's why I know it so well. Um, and I pay attention to these things because just kind of ingrained in coming from the advertising world. But anyway, I digress. Um, you hear this ad, right? On your way home from work, let's just say. And then you get home, and a couple hours later, you're sitting on your couch in front of your TV and you turn the TV on. And what do you see? Another McDonald's ad, right? It's the same ad, right? Just now you have visuals to attach to it. Okay. So that's what I mean by, right? Consistency and repetition is key because the more you see or the more your ideal client hears your message, the more it's going to attract them to want to learn more, right? So I want to encourage you to demyth this thought that if you are consistent and repetitive, that you're annoying your ideal client. No, it's not the case. They need that. They need that reinforcement. We need reminders as humans, right? We need to be reinforced about the things that are available to us. Okay. So tailoring your message, super important. Making sure that your message is streamlined, it's consistent, and it's repetitive. Okay. Now, obviously, it doesn't have to be word for word, but the message, the overall message has to be consistent, and you have to get it in front of your ideal client as consistently as possible. Okay. And as often as possible. Okay. Now, and just let me just say this too. One of the things that I love about our program, and I'm going to be sharing more over the next couple of weeks about some of our courses that we have to offer. But one of the things that I love about the program and that was very important to me to put into the program as an offering was copy coaching. So, in either of any of the courses that you take, in the Employee to CEO coaching program, there are you get to work with a copy coach. You have the option to work with a copy coach, and that copy coach really helps you to and develop your messaging because this is so important. It's like you could put up a website, but if the messaging isn't right, and the website could be beautiful, right? I have friends in the industry that like charge over $10,000 just for a website, right? And more. And that's kind of like the baseline, right? And you could spend that, right? All day. But if your messaging is not on point and it does not speak to your ideal client, guess what will happen? They'll come to that beautiful fancy website that you've designed and they'll leave. They may get through the first page, right? And studies have shown, I used to do research and we used to look at heat maps of where people would go when they go to a client website, right? So do they go to the about page first? Do they go to the home page? And then I would look at what their journey was. Like maybe they started out at the home page, but then they ended up on the portfolio page because that's really what they're interested in seeing is your work or your products, right? Or services, right? So understanding the behaviors of your ideal client and being able to speak to that is so important because it's going to dictate if they stay or not, right? So anyway, one of the things that we do offer in the program is to work with a copy coach, and this is someone who, our copy coach, she's amazing. Like she can just wordsmith and just, oh my God, I mean, she's amazing. She will work with you directly, and you get a chance to really, strategize and talk about and come up with a custom messaging plan for your business so that you attract your ideal client, because that's really what it's about. It's so important. And then, one of the other things that we offer is website design. So if you don't have a website, or maybe you have a website, and this happens all the time, I've coached hundreds of entrepreneurs, emerging interior designers, and a lot of times they would come into the program and, I'd work with them and they would have a website and they'd say, I've got a website already. But then when I go and I look at the website, I'm like, first of all, this does not speak to your ideal client. um, the setup is all wrong, right? Because just because it looks good doesn't mean that it performs well. Okay. So it's a whole nother podcast. And I'm actually I have on my schedule to talk about this, but you know, you can have a website and that's fine. And sometimes it is great and we just need to make a few tweaks, right? But regardless of where you are in that area, we do provide website design, which is so crucial because that's the connection that you get to make with your ideal client. It's kind of like the first date, right? They come to your website and they want to see who you are. They want to see, do you have a solution to their pain point or their problems? And they'll know instantly. Like, have you ever gone to a website and, you've kind of skimmed it because people don't read, they skim. And you're like, oh my gosh, like this is what I need, right? And it makes you just want to pull out your credit card, right? You don't even have to see it all. That's good copy. That's good messaging. When your ideal client can immediately connect with you and have the feeling that this is the person for me, this is the solution for me. Okay. So, website design is important, and then also branding. And we offer all of that because this part of getting your business right is so important. And this is something that we've included in the program as an option that you can add on if you need it. Sometimes we've had clients where they're like, oh, I have my copy already, or maybe they've worked with a writer before and they have their messaging together. But most of the time, I can tell you, once you've done the first part of this, which is learn how to identify your ideal client, a lot of times your messaging has to change or it has to be updated to attract the ideal client. So we do a lot of work around helping emerging entrepreneurs like yourself really kind of get this right because it's so important. Okay, so now the second thing is content marketing. So once you've got your messaging right, now it's like, okay, how am I going to get the message out there to attract and get in front of my ideal client? So content marketing is really about, how are you going to share your message? And there's several ways. It can be through educational tone. It could be, you could, strive to entertain your ideal client. You can motivate them. There's different pillars that you can focus on. But the reality is you really have to, you want to think about how are you going to get that content out there? Now, again, there's different channels as well. So you could say, you know what, I'm going to focus on social media marketing. Now, I don't advocate or believe that social media marketing should be your only way of communicating and getting in front of your ideal client, because it's just such a it's an unknown landscape, right? So a lot of times you don't really control that space, right? You don't own it, right? If Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn or TikTok was to go down tomorrow, you've lost your audience. So, I'm a firm believer in building your own audience and actually moving them off of social media. But if you're going to start with social media, you still have to think about how you're going to deliver your message. So, social media is great. Blog posts are another great option. Blogs are really great for search. Videos like what you're looking at now, podcasts like what you're looking at and listening to right now are also a great option. And, you know, or email marketing as well. Email is great to really be consistent in getting in front of your audience. But you have to build the audience, right? So attracting them is really all about getting that messaging right and figuring out what's your communication strategy. And it could be a combination of several different channels, or it could just be one that you're going to focus on. But what I would say to you is, when you're thinking about choosing a channel, right, for your content marketing, think about like what your personal style is. How do you like to talk and connect and communicate with people? Some people do not like to be in front of the camera. Like I've had clients that I've coached them and they've gone off and like spreaded their wings and they're bloggers, they're podcasters now. They're doing videos to promote their business and there's no fear. They're completely comfortable. But then there's others that, they're like, I tried this. I am not comfortable. Like this is not for me. I don't even like some of them are like, I don't even like dressing up. Like I don't want to get in front of the camera, right? Like it's just not their thing. So you have to fill out what your comfort zone is and then hone in on that. So if you're a writer, go for it. Do a blog post, right? Or do an email do email marketing and grow your email list. So figure out what works best for you, but just be consistent and sharing helpful content that will attract your ideal audience to your brand. Okay. And let me just say this too, you know, again, do not rely completely on social media because that is not a strategy. All right. And it's not a strategy because social media is so different from what it used to be. Like everybody is, a lot of times people are on there just for show, just for clout, just to, be seen. Um, and you don't dictate like how many people of your ideal audience that maybe you've identified is even going to see your post, because it's all depending on the algorithms that Facebook and Instagram and all of these other platforms want to use today. They can change tomorrow. So there's a lot of control that you don't have. And so I really highly recommend that you create a multi-channel strategy to get your content out there. And I can tell you firsthand, like I used to use social media for, just really to promote my business, but it was more of like a nonchalant kind of thing. It wasn't like I was planning my post or any of that. And I would get more traction, right? But now the landscape in the game has changed. So again, I definitely don't recommend that just being a full strategy. Okay. Just alone. Okay, so the next one is SEO optimization. So, SEO optimization, first of all, for those of you who may not know what SEO stands for, it stands for search engine optimization. Okay, so that's just basically what that means is if you've ever gone on Google and typed in some words to try and find something, right? That means you're searching for something. So, what SEO optimization does is it says, okay, when someone goes on Google and searches, right, in the search box, who, how are we going to make sure that this person or this business shows up? So what you can do is you can optimize your business and your website and your content to make sure that it shows up in the search engines. So for example, and this is why your copy is so important. Going back to the first strategy that I shared just a moment ago, search engine optimization, the way it works is based on keywords. So remember, if you're typing in a keyword, that's going to dictate what shows up on Google, right? And obviously, most people click on, and research shows this, that the average person will click on the first 1 to 3 links that they see. Okay. Now that I'm talking about organic search. So after you see the sponsored ads at the top, right? Because people are paying for those spots. Right below that, the organic ads, based on what you type in, is what's going to show up. And most people will click on the first 3. So that's the goal, is you want your business to be in the top ranking, right? The first 3 links, because then it's more likely that people are going to click on your link and then go to your website, right? So the way that you do that is, different on different platforms, but you can, purchase Google Ads. You can have like an AdSense account where you purchase keywords basically so that you show up when people are searching for your product or service or your business. Another way is through social media, and the way that you do that is using hashtags. Okay, so and that also works for the YouTube landscape. So if you have a podcast, let's just say, using hashtags and using the right copy and the right keywords in your show notes is also very important. Even to the alt tags that you use on your pictures, maybe, or your graphics on YouTube. All these things are really important and play a big role in your SEO optimization. So, if you can kind of understand this in your mind, right? If you get your messaging right, then you're going to get the content right. So, what do you say? Like, what are you going to be putting out there, right? How are you talking about your business? And then if you get your messaging right, then you know what keywords to focus on, which will help you to create your SEO optimization. So I know that's a lot. And if you are not quite sure like how all of this is working together, don't worry. It's a step-by-step process. But these are the key things that you really have to focus on so that you can start to attract and bring in your ideal clients. So SEO optimization is a big one. I think I'm probably going to do a podcast just on that alone, but that's kind of the essence of it, just to kind of give you an overview. Okay. All right. The next thing is all about networking and partnerships. So, networking and partnerships is really about simply building relationships, okay, either with individuals or businesses that typically it's best that serve the same or very similar target audience as you. Okay. So you see this a lot, and especially in the podcasting world, I'm starting to notice it happen a lot more. I know for me, I've been a guest on several other podcasts of friends of mine where we share the same audience or a very similar audience. I remember earlier on in my interior decorating career, I remember being on the Luann Nigara podcast. She's a friend of mine, and I respect her a lot. She has an amazing podcast that serves interior designers. And at the time, I had just started my coaching business, Employee to Designer, which is one of the courses now that we still offer under the now Employee to CEO umbrella. So it's one of the courses that we offer. And I remember like her inviting me on the show and us talking about, I think the first one I did was like, oh gosh, what was the topic? I think it was about sourcing. Yeah, it was about sourcing products, interior design, furniture and products for clients. And I remember just getting like this huge response from interior designers in the industry. Like it was an area they were really struggling in. Like being able to figure out like how do you work with, third-party vendors, what vendors to work with, how do you find certain products that maybe are rare, or of a certain style that clients might want, and just kind of how to navigate that whole purchasing process, right? So it was great because I knew that being on her podcast really helped me to serve my audience, right? Just from talking about that topic. And so networking and partnerships are important because it really can help you get in front of your ideal client and really be a resource for them. Okay. Also, collaborating on different projects or cross promoting each other's products or services is another way to leverage network and partnerships. So, for example, I know I did this as well before. I worked with another. Um, she provides more of like resources and products and services for interior designers. But she ended up talking about and promoting my coaching program on her podcast. And so I wasn't on the show, but we had a setup where she would promote my products and services, my program. And then on the back end, we set up kind of like an affiliate program where, she would earn a percentage of any time a new member joined my course or my program. Okay. So that's an example of like cross promoting each other's products or services, so that you can kind of tap into a larger network. Because here's the thing, when you're growing your business, a lot of times you don't have a big audience, right? And so you have to sometimes leverage other people's audiences. And that's a great way to build your credibility and again, get in front of your audience without, having to wait a long time, having to wait to grow your audience, which can take some time. So that's a big one. And then I think the networking piece, I just want to touch on this because this is really important. Networking is really just about connecting and really figuring out how can you serve the other person. And if you're an introvert like me, believe it or not, yes, there's times where I actually heard this the other day. There's another term for it, which I think is more, I identify with more. I think it's, I think I heard my pastors talk about this, Pastor Darius Daniels, shout out to Change Church. But I was watching a podcast he was on and he said something, he said that he's an omnivore. So yeah, I think it was an omnivore, I want to say. I'm sure I'm saying that wrong. But it's where you int- omnivert. I'm saying not omnivore. I think it's ambivert, something like that. Anyway, if someone knows, send me a message. Put it in the chat here on YouTube. But it's basically where you like to be around people, but you have to retreat. You have to have time to refuel, retreat, and you like to be alone, and then you can kind of go back out. And that's definitely me. And there's times where, like, if I don't want to be out, like I could really have very introverted characteristics, meaning, it's hard for me to network, especially not now so much, but before when I was building my business. And it's so ironic. Like I was living in New York City and working in the city. And it was like the gold pot for me to network. And a lot of times I would reclude, like I wouldn't want to go to events, but I would push myself. And I remember being a part of an organization called the National Association of Professional Women. And they would have events all the time and really nice events like rooftop party kind of events, in New York City, really just well done, high caliber events. And I would be terrified. And I would, go to these events and push myself. And I used to do this thing called the penny game because this is how scared I was. And I would basically, the penny game is where you take like 5 or 10 pennies and you put them in one pocket, maybe say your right side pocket. And then The goal is that by the end of the event, you would have moved all 5 or 10 pennies to the left pocket, the other pocket. And the only way you can move the penny is if you initiate a conversation with someone and you network and talk with someone. Okay. It doesn't have to be a long conversation, but you have to make the initiative. So, meaning there's no sitting in the corner waiting for somebody to come talk to you. There's no, being antisocial or hovering over the food area, eating so nobody wants to come talk to you, right? None of that. It's get in there and talk to somebody, right? And here's the catcher. You couldn't go home until you had all of the pennies transferred over to the other pocket. And so I would play this game. And I remember, I'm going to tell you how dedicated I was. I remember playing this game and I had 1 penny left at the end of the event. And I was thinking to myself, oh my God, if I'm going to be committed to this process, I can't go home because I still have a penny left. And so I actually ended up stopping at the gas station and talking to somebody so that I could get that last penny moved over. But really, I'm laughing, but in all honesty, like this thing really helped change me because it really forced myself to get out of my comfort zone. And when I tell you like the relationships and the opportunities that I was exposed to and that came to me were just amazing just by pushing myself a little bit to network and connect with people and build relationships. And so if this is an area that you struggle in, let me just tell you it's an area that you want to foster, because to build a successful business, you have to have community. You have to be able to have someone else other than you that has ideas and has resources and has access to the things that you need in order to grow and build your business. And so you cannot do it by yourself, right? Entrepreneurship is already a lonely journey, right? Don't make it even lonelier. Don't make it harder for yourself. Like really try to get this right. So that's the networking and partnerships. I really encourage you to work on that one because that one will really help take you far. You'd be surprised how much people want to help and support you if you just take the time to build that relationship. Okay. So then the last one that I want to share and talk about today is this notion of providing value first. I think this is a hard one for most people because a lot of times we want things quick, like quick and easy, right? And we assume that, especially in business and especially I would say in the service sector, which is really what I help support emerging entrepreneurs in, is building their service-based businesses. And this one is hard because a lot of times we think that people know what we have to offer. And because we know that it's great and it's a good service or product, right? That they should. And that's just not the case, especially because remember, there is so much noise out there that, remember, as I talked about earlier, consistency is key, that you have to stay in front of your ideal client, right? To attract them. Like it has to be consistent because there's so much noise that you have to compete with out there, right? So the consistency and the repetition is so necessary because it helps break through all of that noise, right? But here's the thing, as you're sharing your message, you have to really put your focus on how can I serve? How can I be of value first? Right? So instead of immediately trying to sell to your ideal client, focus on providing value first. Okay. And this is hard because we all just kind of assume that they know what the value is and they don't, right? Because there's so much noise out there that even when you do get in front of them and they decide to stop and pay attention to what you have to offer, right? You still then have to provide value because they're not going to buy until they see the value in it, right? And so, um, you know, it could be through free courses maybe that you offer. Maybe you're offering a free consultation. Maybe you offer a trial period of something like access to a club or something like that. But once you've built the trust, the good thing is that people are happy to buy from you. They're happy to invest in whatever it is that you have to offer because they trust that you have their best intentions in mind and that you truly are there to serve them. Okay. And that also, they can see that you've demonstrated that expertise in your area because you would have through your consistent messaging. And then that just makes it easy to convert them into a paying client. Okay. So providing value first is so powerful. And I'm going to just leave you with this. I remember uh, working in direct sales, and at the time, I had a coach that I was working with. And one of the best pieces of advice that he gave me was that when you are networking and you're meeting someone or talking to somebody for the first time, to really just get everything else out of your mind and focus on listening to them and focus on thinking about how can I serve this person? Not what you can get from them or what can they do for you, but how can I serve them? And I'm gonna just tell you, it revolutionized the way that I built relationships. It really opened the doors of just allowing the other person to really feel like you see them and that you hear them. And when you make people feel that way, they automatically, in return, it's just like a knee jerk reaction. They feel like, oh my gosh, I want to know, how can I serve you? It's that law of reciprocity. It just activates it. And so the end result is that you always get what you need out of the relationship because you decided to serve first. Because the other person is going to automatically want to serve you when you show that your intention is just to serve them, if that makes sense. So, providing value first is a game changer when you are thinking about, how do I attract my ideal client? How do I get in front of them? Especially in kind of like that networking setting. So I'm going to tell you this last quick tip, and this really aligns with this providing value first strategy, which is, think about where your ideal client is and meet them where they are. And I talked a little about this in part 1 of this podcast, or this episode, excuse me. But when you meet them where they are, let's just say you go to a charity event that your ideal client is interested in or finds value in. And you actually meet your ideal client, and you're probably thinking in your mind like, wow, this is the person that client that I would love to work with, right? And let's say you're having a conversation. This is where you can put this into motion, where instead of thinking about, oh, I'd love to work with them, I want to get them as a client, maybe they'll purchase my product or my service, right? Just shift your mindset to, how can I serve you? And it will change everything. So you end up winning because most likely you're going to get to the conversation or the relationship where, they're going to ask you, what do you do? And if it's a solution that you can provide for them, they're going to want to work with you, right? And now you've gotten them as a client, but you've led with, how can you serve them? And so I want to leave it there. I know we're a little bit over time. I was trying to keep this under 30 minutes, and I'm getting better. I'm going to get better, you guys. But I want to just leave you with, really, it's just important to really focus on identifying your ideal client and thinking about ways and creating a multifaceted channel or strategy, excuse me, to attract them and get in front of them. And these 5 core areas are really the areas that you want to start with, so that you can focus on, getting in front of them and providing that value for them and letting them know that you have the solution for them. Because when people feel that, and they know it, they feel it when they go to your website or they see a social media post or they read your email, like they know immediately, okay, this is the person, this is the lady for me. She's got what I need, right? And so you want to consistently do that. And that is how you really you grow your business and develop a strong customer base, a loyal customer base. And here's the beauty of this. When you get all this right, they'll not only become a customer one time, they'll become a customer forever. They'll become a lifetime customer. And that is something that you want. I have studied business entrepreneurship, and there's power in something that we call the lifetime value of a customer, meaning out of the lifetime of the relationship that you're going to have with them, what is the value that they bring to your business? How much have they invested into your business? Right? That's the lifetime value of a customer. And it could be monetary, it could be, you know, resources, it could be many different things depending on what you're looking for. But that's what you want. You want to develop lifetime long customers. And if you do all of these things right and do them, you know, consistently and diligently, that's what you'll get. You won't get one-time customers, you'll get lifetime customers. And that is my heart and my desire for you. And so I hope this has helped you. I hope this has provided some clarity on how to navigate this. Because remember, this is the first step that dictates everything else in your business. So if you focus on getting these things right and this process right, I promise it'll be smooth sailing. Right now, I mean, obviously there's always bumps in the road, but this is really going to help set this foundation for building a successful business. So I'm going to go. I'm not going to keep you any longer. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for coming back. If you have not already, if you like what I've been sharing, if you find that this is helping you and, discovering your purpose, turning your gift into that multi-figure business that you've been dying to start, create, grow, launch, all of the things. I ask you that you like, subscribe, share this podcast, share this episode with someone else who you might know who is, struggling or desires to start a business, so that we can share and be of service to each other during this process. So have a wonderful day, and I will see you guys next week, same time, same place. This episode, we drop a new episode every week, every Thursday at 10 a.m. And I hope to see you there next week. Take care.